beautiful soul. This is Quinn Curtis, and you are listening to Joyful Living. And it's a joy to have you here today and a joy to be having this conversation with you. I'm excited to open the floodgates and see what is here for us today. I was even just barely recording what I thought would be this episode and just felt very clearly it was time to pause and restart and try again. And so here we are in what is maybe the second draft as far as verbally and audioly of this episode. And so recognizing that the topics that I desire to share and what's in my heart have a lot of depth and a lot of edges and a lot of sensitivity and tenderness and rawness. And so in sharing that, then it's requiring me to really stay connected and rooted and grounded in so that I can stay out of what maybe my ego would want to stay about it and just running on that vein, which it may still do that. That may still happen. But my desire is really to show up today as a resource for you. The whole conversation of expert versus resource has really exploded in my world in the past week, and it's brought such profound insights into my world that I felt that it was important to share that in the conversation with Joyful Living. What I see happening so frequently in our world is that we have the temptation to jump on the they've got it all figured out train and they've really arrived train because we maybe are having some pain in our life or some conflict or struggle, right? And so then we see maybe a Facebook ad or somebody speaking or somebody telling us that, their life used to be like that. It used to be struggle. It used to be hard. And now they make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and they travel all over the world and they wear fancy clothing and now their life is amazing and it's so, so happy. This possibility happens within this show, right? Of that very easily, this could turn into a conversation of, well, I used to not be happy and joyful, and now I've figured out everything, and now I'm very joyful, and that's why I'm here teaching you all, because you haven't got it figured out, and so we have to do this conversation so you can get what I have. And while of course there's a little bit of truth to that, what I would love to add to this conversation is the concept of, rather than being your expert in this conversation, what if I can simply be your resource? So the conversation of expert versus resource is so fun for me because as an expert, someone as an expert has they have basically been now put on a pedestal. They've got it all figured out. They know everything about this thing. Whatever their thing is, they are the expert on it, right? And so it necessarily places everybody else in a position of less than. We know less than about that. We are not enough by comparison, and we don't have what that person has because they are the expert in it. And so then we find ourselves with coaches or classes that we want to take, or maybe we see that Facebook ad and we're like, okay, maybe they've got it all figured out. Maybe they really have arrived. And if I just knew what they knew, then my life would be perfect. My life would be amazing. So I better pay for their program and coach with them so that my life can be amazing. Then what happens is that maybe we take the program or we do the course and we do all the right steps. We do all the things the expert says are going to equal happiness, are going to equal what we want. And inevitably, other factors are at play. And so maybe it doesn't all work out like that. And in fact, our life isn't all better and it isn't all fixed. And we still get frustrated at our spouse, or our house still is a mess, or our life is just basically still not perfect. So then we think, oh, okay, it must be the next thing the next person. And so we see this kind of a fad happening all the time in the weight loss industry, right? That, oh, this next expert, they've got it all figured out. I see these ads continually online of like, oh my gosh, this weed that was just found in the Amazon is what all of these stars are now using for their weight. And we're all so excited as we see those ads because we think, oh my gosh, they really have figured it out. The answer really is here. The quick fix is really here. And let's listen to the experts and let's do it. And then we try it and maybe it doesn't work and we're still left. And so what I feel like what happens in these cycles is that perpetually we are left wanting, right? And so our desire for why we wanted that was not resolved. It wasn't fixed. And so then we feel less than. We feel like maybe there's something wrong with us, why we can't have what they have. Maybe there's something that we, something fundamentally wrong with us, or maybe God doesn't want us to have money like they do, or whatever our excuses might be, or our reasoning might be, and understanding the gap between the expert and us, right? It can be really painful and really stressful on our systems. And so my husband and I were discussing this tonight and just talking about how the ego works and how it shows up. And, we were seeing recently, we have some good friends in our world that, we've seen this in lots of places and have even experienced it and been experts ourselves in areas of our lives and have experienced that as well. And so we were recognizing how, we have maybe people in our life that were originally very humble and very teachable. Now they've figured out something and their attitude has become very much that of the expert. And so now suddenly our conversations with them are very different. Instead of, very like a relationship based, it's now become a teacher-student in maybe the worst kind of a way as far as that now that they are the expert and they have figured this thing out, now everybody else needs to be taught by them and they need to be out there teaching it. Even that being more of a priority than them even living it sometimes, right? And then them feeling this pressure of they've got to keep up the persona of being the expert. So they have to keep looking like they have it all figured out. And honestly, being a brand strategist like I am, then I can definitely understand this conversation on a very deep level. As that is a lot of times what branding can do, is that you position somebody as the expert of whatever they are the expert in, and that the job of the brand strategy is to elevate that person onto their pedestal of expertness and add credibility through the brand so that they are perceived as the expert, so people want to buy from them and want to work with them, right? But in our current model, I just feel like there's a major painful gap in this way of doing it, because the expert model is built on lack and built on less than, better than, knowing more, knowing less. Got it all figured out and still don't have it all figured out. Got all of my shiz together and I don't have anything together. My life is a mess, right? It's the contrast. And even when you look at a marketing perspective, that's how these experts position their programs. In fact, I've been in a lot of situations and I mean, it's a tricky situation because I think it's not necessarily what we're doing that changes in this conversation, but how we're doing it. But just as an example, in like standard marketing literature and how to position your product or service or your brand, then you would look at the, what is the pain that you are solving for people? And, bringing light to that pain and emphasizing that pain and speaking to that pain so that you can really be clearly seen as the expert of fixing that pain and solving it. And so here again, there's shades of gray in this, and there's shades of light and shades of darkness, right? And so the darkness part of it would be, or the shadowy part of it would be, when this is run with ego. So we see this kind of a situation in that a lot of life coaches out there, for example, the life coaching industry is under a lot of attack because a lot of life coaches have been perceived as giving out great advice, quote unquote, but their own lives are a mess and they're in the crapper. We see that with marriage experts whose marriages are on the rocks and who have not any experience with having a great, long-lasting, stable, healthy marriage, or parenting experts who had maybe one kid and don't have a lot of experience with it, right? Or not saying that one kid doesn't give you experience. That was probably a poor example, but just just really all we're saying is that once we decide or position ourselves as an expert, a lot of times then that cuts off our growth. And there's definitely expert level of our growth, right? I'm not saying that we don't want to go for mastery and learning as much as we possibly can and being extremely well formed. But the goal is that we want to not let the ego cut us by surprise. So the way that the ego would catch us by surprise is that in this situation that maybe, for example, then maybe I'm doing a Joyful Living podcast. And so then I am positioning myself as an expert in joy. And so then I might, maybe somebody else out there starts to talk about joy, right? And they position themselves as an expert in joy. And so given the current model and how expert works in our world, it's very difficult for me to remain really peaceful about there being two experts. Or what if everybody decides they're an expert all of a sudden? Suddenly, my point of view doesn't mean anything anymore because now everybody's an expert in it, right? And so so all I'm proposing is that the expert path or perception of expert can be very damning and very limiting because it can stop our growth, because we start to believe in our own amazingness. And then we start to be energized by that perception of our own amazingness. And our ego starts to be stroked by everybody telling us how great we are and how much we know and how much maybe we've even made a difference in their lives. And we start to really believe, wow, yeah, I am an expert in this. And what I say is, the epitome or the most important thing, or I have the most cutting edge and I have the biggest truth about this on the planet. And that puts us in a king of the mountain kind of a situation where we remain the king of the mountain only until somebody else knocks us off the king of the mountain or knocks us off the mountain. And so instead, what I believe the higher model would be is of the resource model. The resource model would recognize that everyone is a resource. That, yes, I'm the one that is speaking in this conversation. I'm the one hosting this podcast about joy, but I'm a resource to you. I'm adding my insights and experience and perspectives and learning and wisdom that I have gained as a resource and a support to you on your path. But I am not the expert on this, and any one of you could be a guest on this podcast, and don't you even worry about thinking that is totally a secret desire of mine, because I know that each of you actually are a resource. And that is probably the only thing that sometimes I get a little bit sad about, is just that this isn't more of a conversation. And so I feel like the conversation stops when when we're perceiving others as an expert. But when we're seeing others and those that we coach with and work with and listen to and are led by, when we perceive them as a resource on our own individual path, and that listening to them or learning from them, that us being a success with what they're teaching does not equal or does not have to equal us being and doing and having exactly what they have, but that instead success with that experience with a resource would mean that that experience enhanced and supported our own life experience, our own discoveries, our own path. And so really then we come to see that really it's a level playing field, and that the game is not about better than, less than, and I know more than you know, and you should listen to me, and I have to maintain my tenuous position on top of the mountain and continue to be perceived as having arrived and having figured it all out. Instead, we're able to embrace more of our humanity, our humanness, of that even when we have figured out lots of things in lots of places, we all still have messes. We still have our humanness and old, stuff that we've got to work through, no matter how much money we're making or how enlightened we've become or how much we've learned and how many skills we have in our tool belt, that we always all will have our stuff that we're all working through. And so really to let go of the myth of arrival, which really looks like they've got it all figured out. Their life is amazing because of what they know. It's really, really a fascinating thing to wrap our minds around. And our minds are even a little maybe afraid because they're so connected with our egos of like, wait a minute, this is not what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear if I did the thing and I did the class, then I really would have what they have because that's what I want. Well, what if you do the class and you receive the insights that are meant for you, and you receive the pieces that fit with your puzzle, and you're able to let the rest go, and you're able to let your life blossom as it is meant to blossom. And your life gets to be you back in the driver's seat, instead of what happens in the expert model is often that we let the experts sit in the driver's seat of our life and, okay, wherever they tell us to go, whatever they tell us to do, we will do it. Rather than when we're in the resource model, then we are in the driver's seat. We stay in the driver's seat, and the resource gets to sit next to us as a helpful co-pilot, right? And they get to guide us and say, oh yeah, look over here, or, take this turn. I think that would be a shortcut for you, right? But we maintain our position as the captain of our own life, of our own ship, and we receive all of this great resourcefulness from everybody that's in the world that's aligned with us to receive something, some support or some guidance or some insights from. We receive that with gratitude because receiving it doesn't threaten our own position as the expert. Instead, it enhances our own position as a brilliant and capable captain of our life. Because the smartest and most brilliant captains recognize that to successfully captain their ship, they get to listen to the crew. And they get to take counsel from the other members of the crew, and they get to, receive support from those other insights and points of view, and that through those added insights, it makes the entire operation stronger. And then nobody is winning in life and nobody is losing by comparison, which would be the expert model. And so this was just a really powerful insight in my awareness, and my husband and I were just so excited about it because it also helped frame how we take our own work and genius out into the world. Because it can be really scary when we feel like we have to be the expert. There's tons of pressure, and goodness, I have massive amounts of experience in feeling that pressure and trying to strategize how to be the expert of whatever I am positioning myself as the expert in, using those old models of marketing and branding. The new model, though, and the model that we're all craving for is the human model. It's the model of resources and resourcefulness. And we're craving people to be real with us. And even though there's still a part of us that hopes that somebody really has the magic bullet and the secret pill that really is going to take away our problems, that's only a natural ego response, right? The soul desire in each of us is that we want what is real because we want what is true. And it's not a truth that anybody has arrived on this planet. I mean, arrived as in we're all here, right? But arrived as in like they've made it and now their life is perfect. This is why we see so many, Hollywood movie stars or musicians who are brilliant and talented and they've got everything that most people could ever think to dream of, and why they end up shocking us all with a drug overdose and killing themselves, and we find out how depressed and anxious and disturbed they were. That's because the magic pill is not outside of us, right? It's not, the path of our individual happiness and joy. There's no expert in the world that can tell us exactly what that is going to look like, because our joy is personal, it's individual, and it's intrinsic. It's not outside of us. And so really what a resource model does is it helps light up and bring forward more of our own truth and our own divinity into our experience, so that we can then bring more of our truth and brilliance and genius and beauty more fully forward to do our own work in the world. I think the other piece that the expert model does is that it leads us into following the one path to happiness, right? And so for a lot of, looking at girls and women, there's this one path to happiness model that's being taught by, the expertness of what is, of the powers that be that determine what is beautiful and what is desirable. And so we see that on a expert level, then being thin and being beautiful and even to the point of photoshopping and giving us those expert rules, which is another thing that the expert model really does. The expert model gives a lot of conditions and rules for anything that's being shared, versus the resource model says, hey, this is what I've learned, this is what my experience has been, and this is the wisdom that I have gleaned from it, and take what there is in it that supports you and leave the rest. So there's so many rules out there with body image and with our shape, and I loved one of my coaches and mentors was sharing this really powerful quote from Naomi Wolf. That this quote is actually from her book, The Beauty Myth, and she was sharing it with us this week, and I absolutely love it. And it's so powerful with exactly what we're talking about here. It says, a culture fixated on female thinness is not an obsession about female beauty, but an obsession about female obedience. Here again, expert versus resource, right? I want you to be thinking of that in context with this. Dieting is the most potent political sedative in women's history. A quietly mad population is a tractable one. Tractable meaning easy to control and manipulate. So a quietly mad population is a tractable one. So this obsession, this madness of trying to obtain this, what experts say, which of course, like if we're thinking about literal experts, I don't know that they're actually saying if you're thin, you will be happy, but it's certainly the subliminal message that is running through just rampant in our societies with everything that is on billboards and TV and all of our media, right? It's just such a visual media right now, and it is thin beauty in women sells, right? And that is what is valued. The quote continues, and it's so powerful. It says, "A consequence of female self-love is that a woman grows convinced of social worth. Her love for her body will be unqualified, which is the basis of female identification. If a woman loves her own body, she does not grudge what other women do with theirs. If she loves femaleness, she champions its rights. It's true what they say about women. Women are insatiable. We are greedy. Our appetites do need to be controlled if things are to stay in place. If the world were ours too, if we believed we could get away with it, we would ask for more love, more sex, more money, more commitment to children, more food, more care. These sexual, emotional, and physical demands would begin to extend to social demands, payment for care for the elderly, parental leave and childcare, etc. The force of female desire would be so great that society would truly have to reckon with what women want in bed and in the world." I loved that quote because it was such a powerful awareness of just how we are as a society, and it is women keeping ourselves so small because of these rules of the expert model, rather than viewing, any diet or any advice for our body and for our health as a resource and a support, and taking it in as we would, receiving counsel, instead of being told what to do and constantly feeling like we are not measuring up to that. It's really, really profound as I really, feel into it more. I know in my system, this looks like, for example, if we look at the process of somebody who comes to know something, like let's stay with the body image model for a minute. Let's say that you are a personal trainer, right? And let's say that you used to be really overweight, and then you discovered a few things, and then you figured out how to shed the weight and keep it off, and now you've become a personal trainer, right? And so if you are to take the path of the expert in this way, then as the expert, every single person that you would work with and teach, you would teach them your way of doing it. And you would tell them, do these things, do these exact things that I tell you. Follow exactly what I did to get what I have. And as the expert, then maybe you're having a rough time in your life, and all of a sudden you start putting on some extra pounds. And so suddenly your very livelihood is threatened because your livelihood is dependent on being perceived as an expert on thinness and being physically fit. And so now, how will you even provide for your family? How can you maintain your job as the expert of that field? Right? And I think that we've all been on the other side of this coin. We've all had opportunities also to be in the expert seat in areas of our lives as well. And what we know, and what's so funny that we stay asleep to, we know this. We've done this so many times. Like insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Just like what Einstein said, right? So the insanity is that we keep going to these experts. We keep doing the steps exactly like they say, and it keeps not working out exactly how they said it would work out for us. And then we scratch our heads and wonder what's wrong with us. Or we even defame them and say, well, what's wrong with them? So this is why the expert model is broken, because what works for one person doesn't work for every person. Especially with weight loss and with our bodies. Our bodies are all individual. Our bodies all respond to things in different ways. And yes, there's a lot of similarities, but there's no identical systems. We all have different tolerances and sensitivities and, programs within our bodies that run different ways. And so the resource model in this situation would look like, you have that experience, you shed all that weight, you learned some things, and then you decide you'd like to help other people with that. And so you'd like to be a teacher and a support to other women. And so you recognize that underneath all the things you actually did, underneath the action, there were some powerful things that you learned. And so maybe you learned that you needed to work with your body, and maybe you learned you needed to ask your body the questions so that you could learn, what does my body need? So then with everybody that you would work with from that perspective. You would say, hey, let's listen to your body, okay? Let's talk to me about what your experience has been. And let's just take a minute. Let's take some deep breaths and let's stop and listen. Like, what does your body really need to be well and to be healthy? This is a similar thing as what, I'm forgetting her name. Brilliant doctor. Oh my gosh, I will think of it in a minute, but, that is so alarming. Anyways, I have forgotten that, but I will remember it at some point and I'll post it. But it's a doctor that I just adore because she's talking about this conversation on a medical level, as far as that our health and wholeness is so much more than just a diagnosis and take this and do this and you'll be fine. It's so much more a process of wholeness and like listening to the body and understanding what are the real needs here. And so, for example, in the weight loss industry, one of the biggest, funniest things is that, funny to me, I guess, is that we look at the situation of, okay, well, you're eating too much, so you're overweight. You need to cut back on your calories. You're going to die. Your family is going to lose you because you can't stop eating so much. So we're going to put you on a diet. And you need to watch what you eat. We're going to cut out sweets. We're going to make you walk and do all these things so that you can get rid of this deficiency or this problem with you, right? Not once or rarely. I mean, now it's starting barely to get more common, but we aren't asking the right questions. We're giving the expert model of take these steps, call me in the morning, and we're not listening. And maybe that's really what it is. A resource model is a conversation model. It is a model of resourcefulness and listening. It's truly hearing the other side of the story and hearing what's going on so that as a resource, we can add insights and valuable, guidance and counsel. But it's humbly recognizing I do not know what is exactly the solution for any one person. I do not know what is exactly going to bring them what they want. I am not an expert. Nobody is ever an expert on anybody else's life. That's not the case. And so instead, as a resource, we can show up and like in the personal trainer situation, we can ask the right questions and say, honey, why are you eating so much? Like, what's the hole you're trying to fill with food? What's the pain that you're trying to hide? What's the secret death wish? What's so hard about living right now? And then through answering those real questions, we can get real answers. And through those real answers, we can have powerful shifts and changes that can make a difference and can lead to the weight loss and can lead to the results that we want. But I, for one, I am sick and tired of the expert model. I'm sick and tired of seeing people show up in my Facebook sidebar in ads, or now in our streams, it's showing up everywhere, as I'm making 6 figures and I'm gorgeous and I'm my life is perfect and I'm doing my work while I'm in Paris, right? We're not getting the full side of the story. We're just being taught, we're not being taught the full side of the story because there's this act that has to be played in order for the expert model to work. There's a show that has to be put on that makes us believe that they have what we are missing And so that's why we will give value to them. That's why we'll pay money to them, because they have something that we don't have, that we want, something outside of us. And so they are going to give it to us, or they're going to be the magic pill that helps us get it, rather than the resource path that would be, wow, this person has really figured some things out. They have a lot of wisdom in this area. I desire their counsel and I desire their support. I'd be curious what they have to say about my unique situation and what insights they would have. I wonder if they may have figured out some pieces to their puzzle that would be some pieces to my puzzle as well. And I'll just keep going along on my path afterwards. And maybe they only have one or two pieces, but nobody has the full truth, right? Of your truth for your life except for you. So really the expert model is pointing up at a pedestal to somebody else, whereas the resource model is pointing back to you as the captain, as the pilot of your own life. And so, of course, as we're talking about joyful living, I'm hoping that you're already catching some of the reasons why I'm bringing this up. But recognizing that even as you're listening with me, I hope it is getting a little bit more comfortable in your systems, and recognizing that I am showing up each week or each time that we have these conversations as a resource. And that anybody I bring on the show, I do not bring on as an expert. I bring them on as a resource as well. And that as soon as we start to see anybody as an expert, that it can be a really damning and damaging thing for us. And so I was even just talking with my husband about how would parenting change if, instead of being the expert on adulting, being an adult and like how to survive in this world, and how to do life like a lot of our parents and their parents and their parents before them were, right? You had to be the leader in the family, and that made you the expert in the family on all of this. What if instead we were the resources of, hey, I've had a lot of years of experience on this planet, and in my experience, this was really helpful, and this wasn't, and I wouldn't choose this experience for you because it could be really unpleasant, and but that's my counsel. Take it or leave it. I feel like it would open up space for us to have real relationships and real growth in our lives when we are more operating on a resource model. Instead, what happens, especially like when we look at a parenting situation where we are operating as expert rather than resource, then it ends up being a very limiting conversation, it's not a conversation at all, actually. And it ends up leading to either a superficial agreeing with you and a superficial pleasing, or it can lead to rebellion. Because there's only one way, and that is the expert's way. There's no customization. There's no adjusting or, compromising. It's the expert's way. And so instead, if we are a resource, a valued and highly important resource, right? It's not to say that the resource isn't important. It's valuable. It's highly important. Then instead, we are able to have a real relationship develop with our children. And we're able to really hear them and really understand and see them. And then they're making decisions not out of rebellion or compliance with the expert model of the family. And instead, they are making choices based in not out of that fear or anxiety, but instead based on trust. I trust you because you're willing to be real with me. You're willing to hear me. You're willing to see that there is no one size fits all process in doing a life on earth. Everybody's life is a customization and a unique expression. So there is no one size fits all. And so I hope that this conversation is insightful to you as you look at, whomever you're taking counsel from in your life, and just leveling out the playing field, that there is no pit and pedestal, and that the pit and pedestal model is not essential to us continuing to learn and grow as a society and a people. That instead, if we can be resources to each other, then it recognizes that every single person on the planet then becomes a resource, a treasure trove of knowledge and wisdom and experience. And there is no competition anymore. And we can learn from every person around us. And that some people who have really spent a lot of time and energy increasing their wisdom, increasing their resourcefulness, we can say, wow, I desire to learn from you. And I value all the resourcefulness that you have developed. And I believe that would be a support in my life. And so I desire to exchange value with you. Not, I don't have enough and I need this expert to tell me how to have enough, to tell me the steps, tell me the things I need to do to have what I want, right? We're so hungry for just to give me this 3 steps to make my life better. In fact, that's so often like whenever I'm asked to speak or do something like that, it's very often like the 3 steps, which I like. I like keeping things simple and bite-sized pieces, but it's also such a funny shadowy side of that of like, just like give us the 3 steps to have everything what we want or to have the lives that we want. And then we get frustrated that our lives are still hard or struggle or we still have pain and conflict and are not perfect. And so it's just such a funny thing that we do. But this is definitely a conversation that I feel can open us up to greater joy, because as we know, comparison is the thief of joy. And I love, one of my other mentors this week said something so powerful that I want to like cross stitch it on a pillow even and have it on a huge banner or billboard, but it's just, anyway, such a powerful concept. I'm overemphasizing that. But she said that, and this is actually Jody England, who I love and adore, and she has an incredible podcast that I highly recommend called Wild Soul Medicine Radio. And some very powerful and potent conversations happening on that podcast recently that have totally inspired my own inquiry and exploration in this topic. And definitely the resource versus expert model was actually sparked a lot by my experience with her podcast about not drinking the Kool-Aid, which I will definitely link to in the show notes here. But it was such a eye-opening conversation. So I invite you to listen to that. I think it's so powerful and would help you. But okay, what she said that I'm going to cross-stitch and just, I love it so much, is she said that judgment and comparison are natural ego reactions to feeling fear and shame. I'll say that again. Judgment and comparison are natural ego responses to feeling fear and shame. So powerful to awaken to and to understand is that when we know comparison is the thief of joy, but we're like, well, how do we avoid comparison? Like, it's a tricky thing, right? We see other people having what we want in our lives or seeming like they have it all, or they've been so blessed, and we scratch our heads and we're comparing and wondering, well, why not me? Why can't I have the perfect marriage? Why can't I have the perfect kids and great house like they seem to have, right? And so I would propose that the next time that comparison or judgments about others show up, that we really stop and do a check-in and recognize, oh, this is my ego trying to protect me from fear and shame. How fascinating that that's showing up right now. What am I afraid of? What is there some shame about in my system? And so in that example, then maybe seeing other people that are successful, maybe there's some fear and shame coming up that, wow, maybe I'm a loser, or maybe my life is worthless by comparison, or maybe I'm never going to get what I want. Maybe that's the fear showing up, right? And instead saying, oh, okay, fear and shame are showing up. Okay, good to hear. And I'm going to look deeper at it and understand, like, is this a real thing? Is this a real thing I should be afraid of? And if it's not real, then what is true in this situation? So it's a good parameter instead for us to stay more grounded in what is true. And so when we are still so tempted and caught off guard by the sparkly, shiny expert model, then it's inevitably because there is comparison going on and there's some judgments about ourselves and our situation going on that are connecting us with fear and shame. And I believe that it is time for us to be liberated from this model, for us to liberate ourselves from this model and no longer believe that we are broken or that we are worthless, and that just because we do not have what everybody out there is telling us we should have, if we don't have thin, if we don't have wealthy, if we don't have, perfect husband or whatever it might be, that we aren't turning that knife back around on us to say like that means there's something wrong with us or that we have failed, that we recognize and have compassion that each of us came to earth to learn and experience different things. And each of our life paths looks different. And there's not a one size fits all for happiness and joy. And that's what we've stressed. I think maybe we stress that every episode on this show, but just really stressing it again and again, because we have we've been so sold and fed. I mean, it's like it's the milk we've been nursed with since we were in embryo, that happiness in our lives needed to look a certain way in order to be stamped as a success or stamped as, yep, happiness. You deserve it and you can have it. And so instead, let's look at the resource model a little bit more, and let's start to see, books and teachers and podcasts and conferences and whatever we go to. Let's start seeing them more from those eyes as, wow, how fun to get to learn from you, my fellow person on our path. We're both on the same path. It's not like the path leads to the same destinations even necessarily, that all paths to be successful have to lead to what that expert has, right? Each of our paths, this is just really coming back to being self-governed rather than other-governed, right? Governed by everybody outside of us and what our society and everybody else is telling us that we need to be doing, and that those rules that are placed upon us. And so just taking us back to that Naomi Wolf quote of, here again, like, this culture fixated on female thinness is not an obsession about female beauty, but an obsession about female obedience. Obedience, right? And recognizing, like, all of this, like, do what I say so you can have what I have. It's not about even what you're going to get as a result. It's about obedience to that person's path, or that person's their instructions. And not saying that instructions aren't valid and helpful, they absolutely are. But when we take them over listening to our own heart and our own soul, when we take them believing that their voice matters more than that voice inside of us and the divine voice guiding us, whatever it might be, that's a problem. That's going to compromise our joy. And that's going to make it more difficult for us to be free, right? And so I love the last part of this, the first part of this quote, where she says, "A quietly mad population is a tractable one." Tractable, of course, meaning easy to control or manipulate. A quietly mad population. And I believe this is the madness that she's describing. Obviously, she was talking about the expertness in what is beautiful and what is desirable for women and what women should look like, right? Following that expert model has made us quietly mad, and thus it has made us easily able to be controlled and manipulated. And so let's take back our power. Let's take back our own lives, and let's really dive in and look at it from a value or a perspective of resourcefulness. And let's listen to our hearts more and our souls more about what's right for our path and what's right for us to blossom. Because so often I feel like the expert kind of piece is that, maybe we could liken that to, it's like apple trees trying to tell every single other plant in the world how to be an apple tree, right? And tulips, we're just trying so hard. We're doing all the things they tell us and we're following all the instructions. And why aren't we apple trees yet? And we only have these lousy blooms and they don't ever turn into fruit. We must be failures, right? No. The apple trees know how to grow their apples. They can be the experts of their own path, and we get to be the experts of our own as well. Right? Really big conversation, and definitely one that I feel like we could spend weeks on and just diving in. And maybe we will. I'm sure it will come up in the future, but I just really am humbled and so grateful for these insights because it's helped open me up to feeling much more comfortable in sharing, even in this role or in any of the capacities where I am asked to teach or to speak or to share, in that I can come from a space from being a resource, bringing my own wisdom and experience to the table to add value and to listen and to hear and to support. But that I don't ever have to play the game of expert ever again. It's really liberating, right? And how liberating, even when we look at the parenting model of how fun is that, right? To get rid of, I don't have to be the expert on how to adult. I don't have to look like I've got it all figured out for my kids all the time. And I don't have to talk to them like I have it all figured out. I can be a resource, and that actually is more valuable and more supportive and more strengthening to our relationship than otherwise. So on every level and in every way, I feel that, this is helping us to break free of being led by fear and anxiety and manipulation and having to put on a show and act and play the part to stay safe and to stay taken care of. And instead, it's helping us open up to enoughness. I am enough. You are enough. We have immense value. And then we can all stop being so damn distracted by all this other stuff and all these expert rules and advice and how it should be and all that mess. And instead, we can return to our path. What is my work here? What is my soul meant to bring to this planet right now? And to my family, to my life experience, whatever it might be. And let's start there and focus there. That's my hope and my prayer. I'm a student of it as well, and definitely in the practice of it, and humbled by the conversation. And I would love to hear your insights. If you're not yet a part of our Facebook group, you can find it on Facebook at Joyful Living. And it is a really fun place to play. It actually might be Joyful Living Movement. Try that if you can't find it. If not, email me at let me see. I have not said this a while because it's just in the end. Listen to the end. I'll say it in the little last part. Just send me that to get your welcome packet, and I'll send you all the information on how you can be a part of that group. But I would love to hear your insights on this conversation there. And let's take this conversation deeper in any of the conversations here and have it be more of a conversation and show up in your resourcefulness so that we can all learn from each other, and nobody has to put on a show that we are the expert or we've got it all figured out, that we can instead show up as, I've learned some really valuable things along the way, and I would love to share that. And I would love to learn from you each as well. You guys are amazing. I adore you. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sending you so much love and cheering you on in your joy path and in liberating yourself from these, toxic patterns and ways of staying stuck and staying distracted and easily controlled and manipulated and asleep to our own divine and human potential here. So that is my hope and prayer. Let's wake up. Let's come alive. Let's be set free. And let's do this. So much love to you. Talk to you soon. Bye. And in the end, only love will last. You've been listening listening to Joyful Living. If you haven't already done so, be sure to email me at quinn@joyfullivingmovement.com so I can send you our yummy Joyful Living welcome package filled with lots of awesomeness, including access to our private Joyful Living network. I read every email from my listeners and would love to hear from you. Also, be sure to leave a review on iTunes, and most importantly, have a joy-filled day.